You're looking at the tech team, by the way. So just to give you a clue on that. Okay, and here we are. Let's start the show. All right. Only a minute late, so not too bad here. Hopefully I won't be getting any emails that'll say, where are you guys? So Brandon, John, Robert, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Virtual Warwicks. We're here again. Bob, I think this is the first time we've had you virtually, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
This is a new experience for me with Warwicks, but yeah. I'm finding it absolutely wonderful because I don't have to leave my house.
It's a wonder, but we're gonna talk about something a little bit later, but I think we're gonna tease it a little bit right now. Something's happening maybe in November where you'll actually have to leave your house and come to San Diego, and so.
Yeah, the new Elvis Cole novel's coming out on November 1st, and when I go, thank you, and when it's published and I go on tour, absolutely, Warwicks is going to be one of my first stops because I always come to Warwicks.
We love it, and we love you for doing that. And Brandon and John, Brandon, you've been to Warwicks a few times, and hopefully we'll get you back in person again. And John, hopefully you'll be joining.
I've never been.
I know.
Never been.
Oh my God!
We gotta get you.
Yeah, great.
We gotta get you here. So for tonight, Bob, can I call you Bob? Robert?
You may call me Bob.
Can I call you Bob?
Absolutely, give you permission to call me.
We've both been called worse.
Yeah.
So Bob, John, and Brandon are going to talk for about 30 minutes. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you click over that, you can ask some questions. I'll pop in probably at about the 30-minute mark and bring those questions. Don't be shy. We love audience questions. In the chat, I'm going to put how to order. Who's got a copy of Cold Fear that they can hold up? I bet John does. There it is. And Bob, there we go. So I will put a link in the comment section, how to order that from us. We are located in, like I said earlier, San Diego. If you're in the San Diego area, we'd love for you to stop by the store and pick that book up, but we do ship books. So click that link and we will ship it to you too. So without further ado, I'll get off the scroll, I'll introduce these gentlemen and get off the screen and let the conversation go. So I know this is always odd. I said in the green room, talking about you guys as you're sitting there staring at me, but I have to do, this is part of my job that I have to do here. So, so let's talk about Brandon Webb first. Brandon Webb is a combat decorated Navy SEAL turned entrepreneur who has built 2 brands into an 8-figure business. As a U.S. Navy chief, he was head instructor at the Navy SEAL Sniper School, which produced some of America's most legendary snipers. John David Mann is co-author of more than 30 books, including 4 New York Times bestsellers and 5 national bestsellers, and his writing has won multiple awards. Brandon and John have written 8 books together, including their New York Times bestselling memoir, The Red Circle, and their first thriller, Still Fear. Tonight, they're going to be talking about their newest one, Cold Fear. And joining them is Robert Crais. Robert is the author of 21 previous novels. 16 of them feature the ever popular Elvis Cole and Joe Pike, which will be coming up with a new one in November. Before writing novels, he wrote scripts for major TV series, receiving an Emmy nomination for his work on Hill Street Blues. With that, gentlemen, have a wonderful conversation. See you in about a half hour.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks. Can I, let me jump in first, guys, because I want to get this up front, why I'm here. I'm here with these guys because I'm big fans of John and Brandon. The new one, Cold Fear, but I want to read something from the back. And of course, I'm going to read something I wrote because I like that. About Steel Fear, their first Chief Finn novel. I wrote this. Steel Fear is deadly good. A 5-star scorcher from first page to last. The enigmatic and mysterious Finn is the next big thriller superstar. I meant it then, and I mean it now. I'm a huge fan of these guys. I love this character. I've never met either of them before. I'm doing this tonight just so I could meet them and talk to them and try to spread the word about this character, because I think if you're into thrillers at all, if you're into continuing characters like Reacher or Joe Pike or any of these people, you're going to love the Chief Finn books. And we're going to talk about why, but I just wanted to get that out of the way and do my whole fanboy thing And now I'll turn it over to Brandon and John for a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Bob. No, I mean, I would say John and I are probably your biggest fans as well. So we got a fanboy out here. I watched Hill Street Blues with my family as a kid. So yeah, big fan of all your writing. Yeah, just happy to be here. Warwick's, I love Warwick's. My kids were living out of state, and I would come to Warwick's and buy all their favorite books and send them to them. And I've done a couple events at Warwick, so happy to be here and happy to be with John.
Yeah, when Brandon and I were booked to do this thing at Warwick's, Julie, who you just met, asked us, "Are you going to have a moderator?" And I thought, I wonder if Robert Crais would even consider this. So I messaged him and said, "Would you even consider doing this?" And he wrote back, "I'm in. Send the book." So we are, to say we're thrilled to have this event the way it is an understatement. And not to get too fanboy, let's just plunge right into the topic of the day. So how should we do this, Robert? Do you want to lead us somewhere?
Let me talk about, and I'm going to make a few statements, and they're going to turn into questions, because I'm very curious about a couple of things. I mean, we'll get to how you work in a couple of minutes, but I was making some notes about one of the things I find so appealing and distinctive about Finn. This struck me in the first book, Steel Fear, and now in the continuation, Coal Fear, book 2. That this is what's really unique and very interesting to me as a reader and a writer is there a sense about Finn that I don't get from any other character in fiction I read, and it's this, that he seems perpetually a man in the wind, as if he is somehow rootless. Now, the reality is that Finn is one step ahead of the most dangerous people on the planet. I'm going to be very careful. If there's any spoilers to be given away, I'm going to let you guys do it. I don't want to take responsibility for that. But when the character Finn, who was a chief, was a Navy SEAL, was deployed in, was it Yemen?
Yeah.
Where did the bad thing?
Yeah, Yemen, Mukalla.
Okay. Something happened that Finn doesn't remember. Automatically, I find this intriguing. He has gaps in his memory, and he's constantly trying to put this together to recover memories about not just that incident, but there are periods throughout his life where this seems to have occurred. So he carries this mystery with him, and it's a very compelling. In the way these guys presented when I say these guys from now on, I mean Brandon and John. The way these guys present it is really beautifully done and very, very involving. And therefore, something bad happened in Yemen. Chief Finn may or may not have done it. And so there are very powerful people who believe he did do it, and they're in pursuit of him. Beginning in the earlier book, he simply vanishes, and that is continuation of, in this book, of Coal Fear, where he's trying to put together the pieces of what happened there. And I find, as I read, that we're left with a sense that absolutely anything can happen to this man from any direction, and that kind of restlessness that he's with, that keeps him moving. He's like a prowler. They also suggest that, and he really is a prowler. In the first book, Steel Fear, which is set on an aircraft carrier, he constantly moves through the passageways in the ship. It's almost like the man never sleeps, but he's constantly moving, and we never quite know why. It's like he's driven to do this. This book, Cold Fear, is set in Reykjavik in Iceland, a place I know nothing about until I read this book. Now I feel like I've actually been there. But he prowls the streets of Reykjavik. I want to ask you guys about that, because I'm seeing this same sensibility in the character in book one. Now again, in book two. Where does that come from, you think? And what does it suggest about the character to you guys?
Go for it, John.
Yeah, well, we spent a year thinking about Finn before, writing word one of the first book, because we knew that he had to carry this thing, however long this thing would go. And the thing with Finn is, in each book he's got a mystery to solve. Obviously, it's the books are thrillers.
Sure.
But he's also, like you said, you said it beautifully, Bob. He carries his mystery with him. There are pieces of himself that are missing. It's not only memories, and even memories from his childhood. In fact, he had some fairly traumatic things happen to him in his childhood, some of which we've learned by the end of the two books, and some of which maybe we don't know about yet. But he not only has pieces of his memory missing, it's like he has pieces of his personality missing, or pieces of his makeup missing. And he's on the hunt for pieces of his own humanity. I think in the first book, there's a line in there somewhere about how empathy was an emotion that he seemed to be born without, or maybe it had been surgically removed at some point. It's not true. He does have empathy, but he sort of can't feel it. And he's a man trying to figure out who he is and what he is. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he on the spectrum of gray? And in the new book, he gloms onto this term rescue swimmer. And by the way, I borrow flagrantly from Brandon. People ask, is Finn based on Brandon? Well, not really, but I borrow a lot from Brandon's life to stick on Finn. So there's chunks of Brandon all over Finn. And before he was a SEAL, Brandon was a rescue swimmer. And so Finn kind of gloms onto this idea of rescue swimmer as sort of a piece of his identity. But that's for me part of the big fun of the book, and the challenge and the mystery of both books is watching Finn sort of play hide and seek with himself.
So he's
tethered.
He's a man in search of himself.
Yeah.
I think also we wanted a character that wasn't your stereotypical idea of what a SEAL is. And even in Steel Fear, right? When he gets picked up in Bahrain, they thought, they thought he was they had no idea it was the SEAL, right? They thought the big guy was the SEAL.
Yeah.
The thing I like about, and John and I talked about, what do we do with book two? And what I really liked about the location of Iceland is I've been there. It's an incredibly alien place, but beautiful and crazy all at once. But I thought we did a really good job exploring this and world building this aircraft carrier, which is incredibly complex to explain to people. And I thought we did an amazing job of that, and carrying this like single environment as like on our checklist. Okay, let's dive deep into these environments. And I was a big fan of Mishner growing up. And what I liked about reading Mishner is you feel like you're, like you said, Bob, like, you feel like Iceland. And that's how I felt after reading like Hawaii. And I think that's something that's okay. What's our list for these books? What do we have to include? Really interesting locations, which we have another really cool spot for book three. Really adds, it's fun to kind of educate people on these environments, because Iceland's a fascinating place geopolitically. Just the environment. First time I visited, it was New Year's. You wake up and it's still pitch dark at 11 a.m. in the morning, and sun comes up for a couple hours and goes back down. But
as I recall from reading a little bit of the history of this particular book called Fear, you also visited a place in Iceland that most people would never visit. did it have to do with being underwater in, in a I don't know, in freezing cold water at a point where you could touch 2 continents at once?
Yeah, that was the story that I shared with John, diving that Fisher crack, and it was such a surreal experience. You know, putting on a dry suit and diving that thing in winter was pretty fascinating. I just like, this is like an amazing, amazing thing. Like, we have to somehow capture this in the book. But, and I also want to give John full credit. Like, you know, when I started chipping away at Steel Fear solo, and I somehow thankfully convinced John to help me finish that thing, which we talked about, what, over a decade ago.
Over a decade. Yeah.
You know, John really brought Finn to life. I think I can take credit for Monica, but yeah, it's like, he's an amazing character. And I think you know this better than anyone, Bob, but you can't cheat on character development. And it's a lot of freaking work to make these characters interesting and make people care about them, because it's easy to take the shortcut, you know?
Yeah.
But I think even Krista is a fascinating character in Cold Fear.
I found her, I found all the characters fascinating. You know, first of all, Krista is Finn, again, guys, stop me immediately. Finn goes to Reykjavik in search of people who may be able to answer his questions about what happened in Yemen, which he does not remember. And he finds himself witness only on the periphery, but a witness who is linked to a homicide. And the Icelandic detective from Reykjavik is a woman named Krista. I just found them all different and crazy and weird in a very appealing way. Krista, her partner Einar, but also the bad guys.
Boone is crazy.
Boone. You know, that what you have is a lot of seal on seal conflict here, and you know, when you talk, there's a lot of geopolitical thriller elements to this book. Now, normally I don't read books for that.
Right.
I read books for the character. The character defines the intensity of the story. Plots don't exist on their own. Anyone can sit down and you know, in 5 minutes we can work out like crazy moves that are simply like skeletal moves, but there's no character, no human being that a reader will invest in to follow them through. But John and Brandon, again and again, they've done it with all the periphery characters, not just Finn, who I truly love, who I truly am now a fan of and want to read more of, but the Icelandic cops, the bad guys. The books, by the way, classic thriller form. They're multi-character, parallel plot lines, running through storylines from a variety of points of view. Moves like gangbusters. Flat out moves like gangbusters, moving back and forth. Good guys, bad guys, always with Finn trying to figure things out. Let me loop back into this, and I want to actually read. I wanted to get back to this because there's some things in the book I read that impressed me so much I marked them. I do that. I actually write in books. Can you see? I have many book friends who actually think I'm an infidel for doing that. But the books I own are all written through. There are, of course, because the book is set in Reykjavik, there are descriptions throughout the book, but this one I just found particularly interesting because I think it sums up the city. So I'm gonna read a paragraph. And of course, Finn is out walking in the city. To me, Finn strikes me sometimes as like a shark. You know, they say sharks can never stop, sharks constantly. I don't even know if this is true, but they say sharks has to swim to keep the water moving. So they constantly are moving slowly. Just
That was part of where the name came from, by the way, in the whole process of
Really?
naming Finn. Yeah, we had that concept of shark's fin. Yeah.
All right.
So it's great you'd say that.
Okay, people, you see what you learned by coming to a video signing here at Warwick's. This is great. I eat this stuff up, man. All right. So, today, the city was a ghost of itself. Streets deserted, its buildings like bones of the long departed. A gigantic double cube of black glass rose up in front of him. The city's gleaming new concert hall. Next to that, a mammoth hotel, still under construction. When he walked this path, there'd been nothing but fishing piers and dusty boat sheds. Now, a modern metropolis had sprung from the shores of lava and rocks. There was something geological about it. New mountain ranges bursting up from tectonic clashes, erupting volcanoes of steel and glass. Finn could practically feel the thrum of hot magma flowing underfoot. I love that. To me, even though I've never been there, that suddenly gives me a sense of this island, this volcanic island, where in this city where it is, all this gleaming new construction, everything else. But the notion that the buildings themselves are being pushed up from the earth gives it a primacy that I really, really enjoy. Because setting is enormously important.
Yeah.
And you know, I can't take my hat off enough because you guys are really masters of setting with this. In the first book on that aircraft carrier, and then this book with Iceland and Reykjavik. I wasn't being facetious earlier when it says like I feel like I've been there now.
That was the goal. Yeah, exactly. Because the aircraft carrier for us, it was like the decision came very, very early on. We don't just want to do a good job of painting the scene. It's like this carrier has to become a character.
Yes. Like
another character in the story. Is it a protagonist or is it a monster? We're not sure sometimes. And the same with Iceland. It had to become like a character so that, in the same way that you get to know a character in a novel. So like if Joe Pike walked into your living room, you'd know who it was just because of how he behaves. We wanted the place to be like that so that you would recognize it from a distance. And so that's lovely that you read that passage. It's funny because that, when you get to know a place, by which I mean through research. I never set foot in Iceland, and Bran was there for a short time. So neither of us has this great familiarity with it. But when you get to know a place through reading and research and just thinking about it, it starts to take on a life of its own, and passages like that practically write themselves because it's just the nature of the thing.
It really it lends reality to the film that's happening in your head when you read. When readers are reading the words, they're creating something in their head. I like to say, and I believe this, that a reader is a writer's collaborator. That we write, we put words on pages, but they're unseen, inanimate. That's just ink on paper. They don't come to life until someone reads them, and then those words and their sequence and their rhythm and everything about them, the reader builds a world. And the descriptions of the city, of course, lend to that collaboration and stand to make it a real place. And the place itself then ends up affecting the characters and the story and the plots and everything that happens. So the emotional feel of it, of Iceland, this alien place. I mean, I'm from Los Angeles, right? So it's not like.
So you know something about alien places, right?
Yeah, I know something about alien places, but I don't know anything about volcanoes and cold.
Right.
This was, it was just terrific. Also, it also speaks to another thing that's a real strong point in both books for me, and that's a real sense of authenticity.
Hmm.
You know, the setting feels authentic. Finn, I mean, we all know Brand was a SEAL. Finn is a SEAL. I say is because he's sort of, it's
Hard to know.
you guys saying that well, right. But the Navy, Brandon, the Navy doesn't use the term AWOL, right? They use something else, different term.
They call it AWOL.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, all right.
They do.
So
Yeah.
it is AWOL.
Yeah.
So Finn's he's on the lam, right? I mean,
Yep.
he's doing Finn things now, and he's being pursued. But Brandon, having been a SEAL, because I've read a lot of books with military characters, and I write books with military characters, but there's a world of detail available in this book, that about that life, and someone who is that, meaning a SEAL. That is, it's so rich and it's so authentic, and it never ever once rings false. And it also has a myriad of tiny small things that that I never knew about, and that strike me as real, and also impact on the characters. And just as an example, because I like to do this, I'm going to read another little section, because I do this. I read things. This is just something that caught me, because I never given it any. Frankly, and this had never occurred to me, but this is later in the book, and after Finn has had a physical confrontation, and even SEALs who never saw combat had some of the highest rates of TBI, traumatic brain injury, of any population group. Out on the water in fast boats crashing into waves, endless series of parachute jumps slamming them into the ground, rattling the brains in their skulls, proximity to explosives, shooting off thousands and thousands of high velocity rounds. SEAL training was possibly the most percussive activity known to man. And that was just the training. They said a SEAL aged 5 years for every year he deployed. By that math, Finn was an old man. See, now, because Finn has just been in a hell of a fight. But these are things that affect the character, and lend to the reasonableness and the accessibility of the world. Finn's feeling it, and he's aware of the cost of it. It isn't like a TV fight where everyone goes on and it's no big deal. That's just one example, and it jumped out at me. But there's examples like that all the way through the book, which makes it enormously. It makes it a really rich, interesting reading experience. So hats off again, guys. I have to ask you about the working together business, because I know how I do what I do. I just sit in a room or on the couch and do my thing. There's two of you. So can you give me just like, how does the magic happen? Do you guys spend gazillions of hours on the phone, or what?
I'll take the first stab at it. And I think you'd be surprised to know, like, John and I are still kind of, I feel like, getting our rhythm down, but we've had those thousands of hours over the past 10 years. And we've talked about multiple things. We've wrote some pretty cool books together. Among Heroes is one of my favorites, which is about a lot of my friends that died in the war, and how do you make a book like that and turn it into a positive, which I think we did. But we've talked about so many situations, the trauma of war, the trauma of training, the toll it takes on the body, the mind, in just like the insider stuff that we can't put in the nonfiction stuff that we worked on, that we can talk about in the make-believe. But I feel like I'm like a young Padawan learning from the Jedi, because John is an incredible writer. I can bang out nonfiction articles on foreign policy all day long, but dialogue, character development, scene setting, it's something that I feel like John is just a master, and I'm like in awe working with him, because this is both our first foray into fiction. To finish up quick, and then I'll let John take it over. I had started I read Stephen King's On Writing, and I'm like, I want to see if I have the chops to kind of write fiction. And I got my start writing fiction for Maxim and FHM. And basically I started chipping away at Steel Fear. And then I just kept bugging John, like, hey, John, I got this thing. And eventually I got him to say yes. But it took a whole life of its own. And I feel like I planted the seeds on that one, but John took it to a whole, like he grew this beautiful redwood giant. And I think it's great when he's like, hey, I need some scene, I need you to write we got the fight scenes coming up, so I'm like shipping them off the stuff. But we're still kind of figuring it out. And I feel like I'm getting better and better just being around John. And it was like a great compliment. I think a couple of weeks ago, John was like, man, because we were like, quipping back on emails to the editor and stuff. And he's like, wow, your like creative writing is really coming along. So I was like, huge compliment to me. But yeah, we're, and I'm just like really having a blast with this. And there's something with the chemistry that's just works. Like it's just, I think the fact that I really love Clancy for the attention to detail. And I read a lot of great writers in the military genre that I'm like, oh man, like it just doesn't work that way, and so that's important to both of us. And I feel like we really put everything into these books, and it's to have someone like you, Bob, and Lee Child, really, who don't give praise lightly. It's a huge compliment. But anyway, John, go for it.
I mean, I'll speak to the process then, but yeah, I think one of the things about, Brandon mentioned the chemistry. One of the things about the two of us is that we're from such different backgrounds. I mean, we're such ridiculously different people. The guy's a former Navy SEAL. I'm a former concert cellist. Those are not the same thing. And so we actually bring, and we're both entrepreneurs, both have a really varied background and experience set. We bring really different life histories to the table and very different temperaments to the table, but we have certain values that we really click on. Brandon mentioned one, attention to detail. Like we really want to get it all right. It's, there's no settling and just saying, well, that'll do for now. And there is no like, that'll do. That doesn't work in a SEAL team. The cords have to be tied away so they don't get in your way when you jump out of a plane at whatever 1,000 feet you're doing. And we also both really, we have a very low threshold for bullshit, or you could say inauthenticity. We really want the stuff to ring real. We really care intensely about the work product, that it rings and that it makes a difference. But I'll speak to process. It's really interesting because people, often assume, well, Brandon must bring all the military detail. Well, yeah, that's true. But I mean, he brings his wealth of detail of his experience. And like he said, we've had so many conversations for over a decade that it's almost like I've lived Brandon's life because I know so much about it. And also some of his teammates and friends and their family members. It's like in the other books, I've had occasion to interview like a whole sort of community around Brandon. So there's that sort of encyclopedia to draw from. But the other thing about working with Brandon is we brainstorm. Like for example, beginning of Cold Fear, the first thing we did, once we knew it was going to be Iceland, we sat down and started to brainstorm the basic plot engine. What's the basic, like, what's the revelation at the end going to be? What's the basic engine of the mystery of it? And he's incredibly creative with this stuff. So what I want people to understand is special operations special operator like a SEAL or a MARSOC or Delta or what have you, particularly a SEAL, is not primarily a fighter, battler, macho killer on the battlefield. Their primary skill set is problem solving. These guys distinguish themselves by their intellectual level, even more than by their physical level. And we all have seen the photos and the reels of them carrying the log in the sand and climbing up the impossible obstacle courses, right? Yes, this is all real. It's all true. They go through this insane physical punishment and come out very, very strong and very, very tough. But it's mostly mental toughness. It's mostly mental resiliency. And a lot of that is creative problem solving. They're very creative, ingenious people. And so that's fun when I work with Brandon. We'll sit down and look at it. I'll write us into a corner and say, good God, I have no idea how to get out of this. I'll write to Brandon and say, how might this work? And he'll just shoot back like 6 ideas. And I'll go, we can use this. So that, a lot of I used to say that a lot of the heavy lifting in the writing falls on my desk. I don't say that anymore because last year I had a hernia surgery. So a doctor won't let me use the phrase heavy lifting. So, and now I say lion's share. That works better. But anyway, but then Brandon, I'll kick the scene to him and say, could you take a stab at the scene? He shoots it back to me. And there's little gems in there in what he shoots back that I can just riff on. So like I get stuff out of him that I can riff on, and it all ends up working.
So you guys you'll swap, you'll zap scenes or chapters back and forth here.
Yeah, like the fight scene, especially the fight scenes in Cold Fear, like the cemetery and that kind of last scene, which I won't spoil, was intense.
A fight occurs.
And I think like together we brought a lot of intensity to that last kind of SEAL versus SEAL scene. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, and it feels like you're like, okay, I'm like jamming a little bit, and John's like, I'm like, oh man, this is fucking good.
I want to say 2 things about the story, about the plot, because to border on spoilers, I just want to say that readers know these 2 things. The first is there is a SEAL versus SEAL confrontation, and that becomes really clear early on because there is this guy stalking Finn, even as he's stalking these other people. And this guy is a former SEAL who's now turned contract killer, who's basically a sociopath. He's a very ill individual, and you're really going to enjoy him. We certainly did.
Awesome.
And but the other thread of the story is that there are not 1, not 2, but 3 strong female characters. And this is something that we never sat down and consciously planned. But Steel Fear opens with Monica. Steel Fear, the first book, opens for several chapters in a row, 3 chapters in a row of all Monica. So the nominative hero of Finn doesn't even show up till the end of chapter 3. In Cold Fear, the first person you meet after the prologue is the detective, the woman Krista, and you get this feeling that all of our books are going to start with strong female characters. That was important to us because these strong female characters exist in the military. They're real. It's an important side of the military that not enough people know about, and we love strong women. What can I say? We're suckers for strong women.
Well, she's great. She comes off great. And
so much fun.
Yeah. And it comes across in I've always been a believer that, writing can be ugly and torturous to do. But ultimately it has to be fun. If it's fun, the writer finds a way to make it successful. And why that I think is important is because if the writer enjoys the process, even if the process is agony, the reader can tell. I firmly believe that, and it comes across in both the books as far as I'm concerned, that you guys I know there's tough periods. I know there's like head bashing you in the walls periods. Me too. But it comes across that there like something really electric and good is happening here. So it really adds to the pleasure of reading these things.
I think also I've had softrep.com for 10 years, and John and I have a tremendous resource in that site, and the staff writers who can also at times review stuff for us. And we have kind of like our own crystal ball on the geopolitical landscape. And I feel like you're reading Cold Fear, you're seeing this play out right now in real time with Russia and Ukraine. And that makes it kind of interesting as well to draw on that stuff.
How about some audience questions now? I could listen to you all talk all night.
Let me horn in first. Can I jump to the head of the line, Teach?
You're first.
Okay.
You get the first dibs.
I want to ask John, how'd you go from being a cellist to a writer?
Oh, you're on mute.
God, protocol, man, protocol. Get off mute. So it's through many and varied steps. It was a tortuous, circuitous route. But basically, I love playing cello. I concentrated on the cello, but I got very involved in nutrition because I was playing cello and looking out and seeing a lot of unhappy and miserable audience members, and I got very involved in nutrition and healing, and I pursued that world. And everywhere I went, entrepreneurship and sales and nutrition and everything that I did and education, I was always the guy who ended up editing the newsletter. So I just edited, and all of a sudden I turned around one day and said, "Oh my God, I'm writing.
I'm a writer."
My wife said, "You should write novels. You'd be great at it." And I would go like, "Yeah, thank you I appreciate the vote of confidence." Translation, I didn't believe it. I didn't. How do you write a novel? I thought it was an insurmountable thing, an impossible mountain to climb. So it took my wife telling me for 20 years that I could do this, and then Brandon being persistent for a decade to finally get my butt in the seat and write Steel Fear. Thanks, guys.
Well, and Bob, I'm gonna jump on that one to Brandon with sort of the same question, because it's like, Brandon, what compelled you to want to be a writer?
It was something to John's point, I fell into. I think it was a combination of just curiosity, and I had a friend, actually Marcus Luttrell. He had written that Lone Survivor, and he said, "Look, you got a crazy story. You should share that." And then he kind of nudged me, and I submitted a piece for FHM it was a fictional piece about pirates in Somalia and SEAL snipers, and they bought it, and that kind of gave me the confidence boost to write more. And then I started softrep.com as a military culture blog in 2012.
Yeah.
And when you're at the time, it was me and a couple buddies, and I was writing for 2 years, like one article a day.
Wow.
And you get really good at writing nonfiction that way. But yeah, so I kind of started, and I think also like growing up on a sailboat with no television, just had books, and I was a huge D&D kid. My grandmother thought I was going to hell for playing Dungeons and Dragons, but it's a great creative outlet. You have to invent these crazy campaigns and go on these amazing adventures, and I think that helps on the creative process. But it's to John's point, it's sometimes I do feel like we're climbing Everest with no oxygen mask. I'm sucking wind, and John's like, "Get your ass up here."
But there's something there's something still compelling about it, because I mean, you run these, you're both entrepreneurs. There's something that's still there's a drive, obviously, to both of you, that just, you have to do this, which we obviously love. So somebody had a question in the Q&A, and it kind of goes back to, you alluded to a little bit, you've known each other for 10 years, but what brought you guys together 10 years ago?
Margaret McBride, my first agent. She said, I was like starting to write The Red Circle, and she's like, "Look, I hate to break it to you, but no one writes their own memoir that good, because there are going to be these parts of the things that you're just going to leave out because they're not important to you and they may be boring, but they're very fascinating. And she's like, I got it. I got the guy for you. He's the best writer I know. And John and I met, and Margaret was on our call last night. We did a Q&A for the soft rep audience, but yeah, thank you,
Oh,
Margaret.
All
Yeah.
right.
She contacted me and said, this is not up your alley. This is not the kind of thing you do, because it wasn't at all. I have no military experience, she said, you probably don't want to do this, but I just want to let you know about it. And I read like a page Brandon had written. I said, oh, there's no way I'm not doing this. I got to do this. So it was in 2009.
Okay. All right. And I do love, Bob, what you brought up about Finn and the shark, and those are those little nuggets that I will take away from this one. I don't think anybody that's here will read Finn, his name, the same way. As I mean, it was I love that. That's what I love about this.
He's a combination of Huck Finn and Shark Fin. What can I say?
Love it. Okay, let's see here. So the question from Luminita is, will you give, this is for both John and Brandon, will you give Finn a buddy like Joe Pike is for Elvis Cole?
So you want somebody who hangs with Finn, who is far less communicative.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to think about this. That's a tough one, because I mean, Finn is such an in the grain loner. I mean, he kind of had that person who was Lieutenant Kennedy,
Yeah.
who died just a month or two before the first book started, and his death is part of what has set Finn tetherless in the world.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's a great question. Thank you for that question, because maybe it'll happen now that you asked.
Well, and there's something about talking about the books and characters. So you had Steel Fear, you had Cold Fear. Are we going to keep with the fear? Are we keeping with the fear as far as the titles go?
Well, I don't mind spoiling Blind Fear.
Okay.
That's right.
All
Book
right.
3, Blind Fear.
You heard it here first, people.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Tropical climate, big storm coming in, lots of crazy stuff going down.
Love
I'll
it.
leave it at that.
I love it.
I'm thinking book 4, maybe Cape Fear. We're not sure. Just thinking.
There you go.
Spitballing here. Spitballing.
Yeah, a little bell. Okay, this one might get a little bit, but Jed's got a great question here. So for John and Brandon, interested in you guys talking a bit about the values for being a good man in today's world and modern warrior values.
I mean, I think that's something, again, back to John and I talking and spitballing about, we want to make this SEAL embody a lot of these traits that people don't realize that real SEALs have and walk around with. And I can't tell you how many times, especially living in a city like New York, people meet me and they're like, "You're a sniper? You don't look like a sniper." I'm like, "Don't let the glasses fool you."
Run.
And it's, I think, there's a lot of things that John and I have talked about over the years. Just my own, even my own issues with combat trauma and losing friends, and a lot of stuff that John's been exposed to, writing about, especially I think among heroes. So a lot of that comes through. We actually knew the same. One of the person that inspired a lot of Finn's childhood trauma, accidentally, John and I knew that same story very differently. And we both, I knew the person personally, and you'll find out a little bit more in the future, but that's, it just makes, I think, for interesting character that Finn is. He's not your typical, buff, hero that just always wins and is always gets the girl, and it's just, he's not that kind of character, which I think makes him super interesting.
Awesome. All right, we're about out of time. It's John, Brandon. It's always so great having both of you. Are we on a book a year kind of thing going? Is that what we're
seems to be the case?
Okay, good.
Seems what's happening.
So I'm hoping that 2024 will be something that we can get both of you out to San Diego in person.
Yeah.
But if not,
I'm in.
I like it.
If not, I love doing this.
Yeah.
Bob, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. It was a blast tonight. And guys, it really has been. I mean, I had a blast tonight talking with you.
Same, yeah. I feel like that scene in Wayne's World. We're not worthy. We're not
Yeah, basically, yes.
I love that.
Thanks,
I think
man.
I'm going to end on that note. Wayne's World, not worthy. Bob, John, Brandon,
Thanks,
have
Bob.
a great rest of your week. Thanks to all of you. Bye.